everyone, and welcome to our channel, the best place for all things sewing. My name's Amanda, and today I'm going to show you how to make a mitered hem. A mitered hem is a great way to make your garments look a little bit more professional. It's also a good technique if you're using bulky fabrics and you have two hems meet, like a side hem or a placket, and a bottom hem, that you want to not have a bulky seam there at the bottom. For example, here's a wrap skirt I've made. This is the bottom of the skirt, and you can see at the bottom I used a mitered hem to make this a little bit less bulky right here. A great place to use a mitered hem would be like the Vermont cardigan or the Tantacross cardi or the Kauai cover-up. Anything where you have a front that's open, so you would hem the side and then hem the bottom up, and you'd have a weird corner there at the bottom that you'd want to make look a little bit cleaner and nicer. A mitered corner just means that you have an angled seam at a corner. As a former math teacher, I really like bringing a little bit of math into my sewing, but I promise I won't be quizzing you on Pythagoras today. First, let's go over some of the tools you'll need. You'll need an iron to help you press things nice and neat. Don't forget to use the proper settings for your fabric. You don't want to use a high heat setting on any synthetic fabrics and burn a hole. You'll need some sort of marking tool. One of my favorites would be friction pins, because once you press over them, the marks go away. But not everybody's comfortable with that. You can also use chalk. Today I'm going to use a Sharpie, just so it's a little bit easier for you to see. You wouldn't want to use Sharpies on your garments though. You'll also want pins, scissors. You'll also want something to poke out the corners of your fabrics. A chopstick's a good tool, any kind of point turner tool, whichever your favorite is. You'll also be using just a sewing machine today. No sergers, no cover stitch, nothing crazy. Just a sewing machine with a straight stitch. Even if I'm doing a mitered hem on a knit fabric, I wouldn't use a stretch stitch on my fabric because it's not going to be a point that is going to get stretched a lot. So you do not need to worry about the stretch of the fabric on the stitch restricting that stretch. So you'll just use a regular straight stitch on your machine. If you're using fabric that needs to have the raw edges finished, you would want to finish those raw edges before starting your mitered hem. So you might want to serge along those edges to finish them, or I'll show you at the end of this video how to do a mitered hem with a double fold for woven fabrics that you would double fold them to hem them. We're going to create this mitered hem. There's a side seam and a bottom seam, and then an angled in between. I'm just going to show you on scrap fabric today, but you would use this technique on whatever fabric you choose to use. So the first things first, take your iron, you'll press your side hem in place, and you'll also press your bottom hem in place. So you'll see that we have kind of a bulky, wonky edge here, and that's what we're gonna fix. So once you have them really nicely pressed, press them as much as you can to make a nice crease. We're going to mark 3 points. We're gonna call them point A, B, and C. Don't get too bogged down with my math terms. Okay, unfold everything. Now that they're creased, fold just the bottom hem up, and you're gonna mark where that meets at the edge of the fabric. We're gonna call that point A. So we're gonna mark where the bottom hem folds up and matches on the side, on the very side of the fabric. We're gonna do that again now for the side hem. We're gonna fold just the side hem over, leaving the bottom hem unfolded. With just the side hem folded in, you're gonna mark the very bottom edge where it matches up. Now it doesn't matter whether you're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance or 3/8 or 5/8, none of that matters, and they don't have to be the same hem, as long as you're marking carefully where those match up. I've marked point A where the bottom hem meets the side. Then I unfold and fold the side. I mark point B where the side hem meets the bottom. Last, I need to mark where point C is. Point C is the intersection of my 2 fold lines. So that would be right here on this fabric. So now if I unfold it all, you can see 3 points marked. Point A, point B, and point C. Next, you're going to turn your fabric and fold point A and B to match each other so it's right sides together. So once again, we're going to unfold our fabric, find point A and find point B, and match them to each other right sides together. Go ahead and put a pin right there to hold point A and point B together. So now I have point A and point B matched up, and I can see point C here at the top. Now, if you look, it'll look kind of weird and wonky down here at the bottom. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be right. That's okay. This should hang off at kind of a weird angle. Don't panic about that. Use your straight edge and connect point A, B. Remember, those are 1 point now because they're both touching each other, to point C. You wanna be very exact on this step. And this is the line you're going to stitch along. So very carefully with the straight stitch, stitch just along that line, back stitching at the start and end. Make sure you're very careful to stay exactly on that line. Once you've stitched on that line, it should look like this. You'll have this weird shape. It's kind of forming a box, okay? Now we're going to cut very carefully to trim that seam allowance. Now, if you're nervous about whether you did the first steps right, you can turn it and tuck that corner in, right sides together, and you can see that I have a nice corner here. It's starting to look nice, but it's just a little bit bulky right here. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna cut that bulk out. If that didn't match up very nicely, and it didn't look right when you folded it right sides together, then you might wanna go back and make sure that you match those points properly and you drew a very straight line and stayed on that line when you stitched. Okay, so now that we've stitched along the line, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut my seam allowance very carefully down to about 1/4 inch. And I'm also gonna angle in towards my stitching at point C and cut a point to take as much of that bulk out as I can. Be very careful that you don't actually cut into the stitch line. I like to finger press this open right here to help it lay flatter too, but that's completely optional. Now that we've cut along that line, we've cut our extra seam allowance out, we're gonna turn it back right side out so the wrong sides are together, and use a sharp tool, point turner, to carefully poke your corner out and make a nice sharp corner. Last, give that a quick press. And once you do that, you'll have a nice, pretty mitered hem. Now, if you're using fabric that you want to do a double fold on for a hem, usually you do this with a woven fabric. We can do this with the double fold just as easily. The steps are exactly the same. So here's my double folded hem. I have both my side hem folded twice, 1 fold, 2 fold. I have my side hem folded in twice. I have my bottom hem folded in twice, okay? And I pressed those really, really well. So now I'm only gonna unfold, so it's only folded in once instead of twice, okay? Now I'll fold the side twice again, and now I'm going to mark where it meets at the bottom. Remember, the bottom's only folded up once and the side's folded in twice. And I mark that point where it meets right there. Then I unfold the side once, and I fold the bottom up twice, and I mark along the side where it meets. Then I unfold both, so they're only folded in once instead of twice, and I look for the crease in the corner where they would both be folded twice, and that's point C. Same thing as before, I'll fold with both of these just single folded in instead of double folded. I'll match points A and B together with the right sides inside, and I'll hold that with a pin. Then I will use a straight edge to connect the point A and B, a combined point, to point C. So it's all the same steps, only this time I have them folded up once before I started. So the folded edge I'm treating as the bottom, the raw edge from before. Carefully stitch along that line, and it'll look like this. So I left those bottom edges folded when I stitched. Same thing, we're gonna trim down to 1/4 inch. We're also going to very carefully trim the point off so we have a nice sharp corner. Last, turn it right sides out. Use your point turner tool to carefully push the corner out, being careful not to push through your stitching, and give it a press, and then it'll look like this. To finish either one of these, you'll just do your hems as normal then at the end and stitch along these edges, making a corner as you go. Hopefully you found that helpful. There's a blog post link below, as well as a couple other fun links for you to follow with a little bit more information on what I showed you. Can't wait to see what you make. Happy sewing!